great as it turned out.
Right.
So.
Let's bring in Aditi now. We've got the technical glitch fixed. Aditi, we're kind of trying to figure out. This is always dangerous to do, but we have 2 hours to kill every day, so we have to do something. We're trying to decide what rubber stamps Kevin to come back after next season. What in your mind does this team have to accomplish to make sure that he's back?
I mean, I think it's a playoff team. I think it needs to make the playoffs. But I also think that you look at Zach Taylor, everybody wanted to run him out of town. And there is something to be said for patience. It's hard because it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? It's easy to sit here today on January, whatever it is, 24th, and say, okay, well, Kevin Stefanski should be able to lead this team into the playoffs next year. But what happens if Deshaun Watson gets hurt? What if Myles Garrett gets hurt? What if, there are so many vagaries in what can happen in an NFL season that it's really hard to just say it's something as simple as a one-size-fits-all rubber stamp.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to hedge. I'm just saying let's be realistic.
No, I mean, you have every right to hedge.
We made that exact point.
That's exactly what we said. Jason was like, well, look, what if someone gets hurt? McNugget said, what about Watson? What if he plays half the season and misses? So I know that they're, in general, you'd like to think that this team is a playoff team. But to your point, not only were fans in Cincinnati over the last couple of years at certain points pointing to Taylor, wondering if he's the guy, Tomlin has had stretches in Pittsburgh where there were a good number of fans that wanted him run out. And the same can be said for John Harbaugh in Baltimore.
Yeah, Jay, I mean, okay, first of all, John Harbaugh was almost essentially fired the year that put Lamar Jackson in. Steve Bisciotti made no bones about the end of the previous year saying, well, this is basically it. And then the Ravens were sitting at 4-7. Joe Flacco's back, can't go. He puts in Lamar Jackson, and all of a sudden the man is coach of the year. So there's that. Even last year, when Zach Taylor takes the Bengals to the Super Bowl, there's all sorts of chatter about what kind of situational football coaching he is doing. So I think there's always questions about that. But Jason was just talking about the Cavs. And this is where sports writers sometimes see something from 20,000 feet that people that are inside the room never really consider. And that is the emotion, the ebb and the flow, the intangible to a team and what they're able to do. And what I mean by that is a week ago, I was in Buffalo watching the Bills against the Miami Dolphins. And I'm telling you, standing on that sideline, even though I felt the Bills would pull out that game, I told multiple people they're losing next week. And it had nothing to do with the way they're playing defense. It had nothing to do with whether they could or couldn't run the football. There's just a tightness there. There was just an exhaustion, an emotional, I don't know. It was something that probably a lot of people looking at the X's and O's aren't putting their finger on. But we're trained to sit here and look at pieces of the puzzle that are, quite frankly, for lack of a better word, the intangible. So when you look at the Browns next year, are they fighting? Are they believing? Are they cohesive? Are they in every single game? Are they trying to gut it out at the end, even when they're down 14 points with 2 minutes left? Things like that, I think that in some way is almost more important than anything else if there are these other factors like major injuries or things not necessarily falling their way. Is that team playing the way you want that team to play? And so when you bring up Mike Tomlin and the record and this, that, or the other, the thing with Mike Tomlin is that his team is always fighting. His team is always in the conversation. And sure, people in Pittsburgh should be a little bit tired of that because their standard is so high that what good is it to be in the conversation? But that's the mark of a coach who is reaching his players. That's the mark of a coach who's motivating his players and who's getting the most out of his players. So you want to be able to say that about Kevin Stefanski more than you want to say, okay, this benchmark of you have to hit 12 wins.
Here's where I get concerned. I agree with everything you just said. Here's where I get concerned. It doesn't
wow,
matter.
That rarely happens.
Oh, that always happens. But it doesn't. To me, it doesn't matter the reasoning. If Deshaun, God forbid, blows out a knee and misses the year, if somebody has a devastating, the reasonings don't matter. If they miss the playoffs again, I'm concerned about where that puts Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb mentally and their desire to want to stay here. I just feel like this thing's teetering with some of their biggest names, and this could go to a really bad place if, for whatever reason, the reasons don't matter. If this team fails to make the playoffs next year and fails to reach expectations, it's not even about the coach at that point. It's about the personnel. Do the players even want to still be here?
Okay, but I would argue back. Well, then that just means they need to take more ownership. And I've heard that about, we've talked about both of these players. Both of these guys are generally quiet, lead by example people. Myles Garrett has been very honest this year that he felt there was more of an onus on him with Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry out. He made more of an effort to be around guys, to play, I can't remember that 4-square, 2-square game, to try to be more of a vocal leader. Even Nick Chubb. I mean, it was Deshaun Watson telling me that Chubb is talking a little bit more in the huddle. Joel Bitonio said Chubb is talking more. You have to be the change you want to see to some degree as well. And it's not enough to me if you are a superstar player, if you are one of the elite players in the National Football League, I don't want to sit here and say, well, you know, I give up on this coaching staff or I give up on this group. You've got ownership too. And the best teams are really, truly player-led. So, Jason, there is a point there, sure, and you don't want to lose those players. But by the same token, well, you have power here too. And there are certain things that are in your control. And what is stopping you from going and sitting in Kevin Stefanski's office, closing the door and saying, I think we need X, Y, and Z? He's a guy who'll listen. Yeah. He's a guy who wants to have that conversation.
Aditi, you were the Browns team photographer for a day this offseason, so I'm going to put you in their GM chair now for a day. You have one big free agency splash to make. Are you making it a defensive tackle, linebacker, or wide receiver?
Sorry, that's my little Browns fan.
Don't ever apologize for that.
Should we ask her? Yeah,
I'd love to ask her.
What would you rather see, Kaya? You know what? Here's the thing. I think that the most ready position coming out of college is wide receiver. So I think it is easiest, and we've heard Andrew Berry talk about this, right? He's talked about the proliferation of 7-on-7 leagues, the pro-style offenses, what wide receivers are doing. You obviously choose the best available player in the draft, but I think that you are more likely to hit on an impactful wide receiver in the draft than you are perhaps to hit on an impactful player in those other two positions. I think defensive tackle. So everybody needs a really smart middle linebacker. Everybody needs somebody in the middle. That's where your defense goes, et cetera, et cetera. But you look at the division that the Browns are playing in. You look at how vital and important it is to stop the run and set the tone.
Yep.
I don't think you ignore the position of defensive tackle. I really just think that that's so desperate. And that was also, quite frankly, the biggest hole this year. It was an area where, and if you believe in your young talent, if you believe in your Perion Winfreys and et cetera, you still need that seasoned older guy in there to lead the way, to show how to be a professional, to teach. And this is another one of those conversations that we just had. Didn't we just talk about this? That sometimes on your 53, you need a personality. That in a locker room, that locker room is an ecosystem. And that it's maybe not the fastest guy, the toughest guy, the strongest guy. It might be that 10-year vet who really helps build that ecosystem. And so I like the idea of getting a defensive tackle in free agency. Don't ask me who to go after because I have no idea right now.
Yeah, I think, though, that, Aditi, that's the $64,000 offseason question for this team because, to your point, and we've seen this it's not that the Browns haven't drafted interior defensive linemen. It's the ones that they've drafted haven't made the impact that they were hoping they would make.
Right.
Sometimes you're just better off going out and buying
a known commodity.
Buying a known commodity. And even if you have to pay for it, and you will, I think that's what they're doing right now over in Berea. They're scouring the free agent wire. They're looking at who is available at that position because that is where they have to make the biggest splash. And I don't even think it's a question. I know wide receiver is an area of need, and they have other areas of need, but to me, there are red lights flashing all over the interior of that defensive line, and those have to be addressed.
And to your point, that is sometimes a position that takes a little seasoning. So why not go and get a guy who's had demonstrated success already? You know, I was watching the Eagles this weekend, and they have a guy in the middle, Javon Hargrave. He was in Pittsburgh. He was not the same player in Pittsburgh. He was a young player that I thought had potential and talent, but Pittsburgh basically gave up on him, and he's become a star in Philadelphia. A star to some degree. But, I mean, I think that that's where you go and that's where you look. And maybe next week I'll have a list for you. Sorry. I wasn't prepared for that one right there.
That's your homework for next Tuesday. Aditi, we do have a surprise for you today, though.
Oh, boy.
Do you remember, I would say it was the day Jay got hit by the car. Jay, do you know how long ago that was?
Over a month.
Over a month. So over a month ago, the day Jay got hit by a car, we had our artist in, Robert Conley, who painted the cool pictures of us that are sitting right there right now, who we're still working. By the way, Robert, Herbie's going to hang up things on the wall so we can hang these up. But someone had sent us a message saying, well, Aditi wasn't in that. We need to get a picture of Aditi. So Aditi, this is from Eric Scheffler. I'll turn it around in a sec. He's from North Carolina. He's a daily watcher. He went to Glen Oak High School. He's originally from Canton. And he wanted our contributors to all have part of the love. So, Aditi, this is officially Steve.
Wow.
This is
wow.
This is from Eric Scheffler, rockstarstudio.org. That's Aditi in the middle.
I think it's spot on. The Aditi is spot on.
Aditi
Very
spot on.
good.
Do I have dark circles under my eyes? Do I look tired?
This is, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just the messenger. But that is
that's beautiful.
That is Aditi from Eric Scheffler.
Cow.
So
It
thank
really
you, Eric.
is a good picture.
It's Tim. Which side is this? The
He
brown
makes
side.
me look better than I look in real life.
We got
You
Tim
send me
Couch.
his email address so I can thank him.
I will absolutely send you his contact, but that's Tim, DeQuell, Leroy, Aditi, obviously, Maurice, and then Robert Smith. So these are all the UCSS contributors. And shout out
Love
Eric.
how I'm above everybody, right?
I know.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
You're the focus. You're the
center. I
center.
am, or I'm the angel.
You're the
I should have
center of
sent
all
him a
the
picture of
attention.
me in a uniform, though. I've got uniforms too.
I think that's great.
I've never looked better than with this
That's
picture in
awesome.
front of my face.
You look older holding that picture up, Mike.
I finally
Guys,
might not get carded.
thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Aditi, we're going to hang
That's
this up.
so
This is going to go
cool.
in the UCSS offices upstairs. Next time you come in, we'll get you maybe to sign
Can't
this
wait.
or something. But, yeah, shout out to all our contributors.
Love
shout out
it.
to Eric for this wonderful piece of art.
Eric, you are amazing. What talent.
Yeah,
I'm
it is really.
so impressed.
I'm always.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by people that can put a pen to canvas or a paintbrush to canvas and depict something.
My birds are M's and my people are sticks. I do not have that.
Everything I draw
ability.
looks like a muffin. Doesn't matter what it's supposed to be. It comes out looking like a muffin. So,
Well, Aditi
So
does not
cool.
look like a muffin. She looks beautiful in that picture, no matter what you think.
All right,
I
on
think
that note, I think I'll leave.
thanks, Aditi.
it's-
Bye,
Aditi,
guys.
thank you.
Thanks
We'll
for
see you
having
next
me.
week.
Talk to you next week.
Have a
That
good
is
one.
that real. I hadn't seen that until you just showed it
Yeah.
on the air. That's really well done.
It is.